The city was quiet that evening as James returned home from work. He lived in a small apartment complex that had recently welcomed new neighbors. Among them was an alien girl named Lyra. She looked different but beautiful, with soft blue skin and bright, glowing eyes that seemed to watch everything around her. At first, James thought she was shy. She kept to herself, often sitting on her balcony staring at the stars. But one day, he saw her trying to fix a broken hover device. She looked frustrated and alone. James decided to help, offering his tools and a friendly smile. Lyra was surprised, but grateful. She accepted his help without saying much. From that moment, a quiet friendship began. They talked little but shared moments of laughter and simple kindness. James learned she came from a distant planet where the rules were very different. One night, James heard strange noises from Lyra's apartment. When he looked through the window, he saw her pacing and touching her chest. Her eyes glowed brighter than before, and her skin seemed to pulse with light. It was like she was fighting an invisible force inside her. James felt worried, but didn't know what to do. The next morning, Lyra seemed calmer but kept avoiding him. She looked at him with strange eyes, almost like she wanted to say something important but could not. Over the next few days, James noticed changes. Lyra moved closer to him, her presence stronger. Her alien body language was confusing but powerful. It was clear that something deep inside her had awakened, something primal and urgent. One evening, James found a strange device in her apartment. It glowed softly and emitted a low hum. When he touched it, memories and feelings flooded his mind. He saw flashes of alien worlds, rituals, and emotions he had never known. Lyra finally explained without words. She showed him visions of her species' mating instincts, a cycle that took over their minds and bodies. She could not control it. James realized this was more than attraction. It was survival and connection for her kind. James was scared but also curious. He wanted to help Lyra fight this instinct without losing herself. They started working together, searching for a way to calm the wild energy inside her before it took over completely. But time was running out. The city's quiet streets hid dangers from others who hunted alien species for their power. James knew if Lyra's instincts became too strong, she would become vulnerable in ways they could not imagine. Their bond was tested by fear and hope. James woke up early, thinking about Lyra and her strange condition. He wanted to understand her more. He decided to visit the small library near his home, hoping to find books or records about alien biology and mating instincts. At the library, James found some old data files about alien species on Earth. Most of them were dangerous or secret. But he found a report about a species very much like Lyra's. The report said their mating cycle was very strong and could control their minds. If left alone, James realized that Lyra's instincts were natural, but very hard to fight. He also learned that some medicines or special devices might help calm the urge. But nothing was certain, and time was short. He returned home and found Lyra waiting outside his door. Her eyes shone softly, but her body seemed tense. She reached out to James, and he took her hand carefully. He promised to help her no matter what. Together, they began testing different calming methods. James made a small device from old tech he found, hoping it could block the strong signals from her brain. Lyra felt relief sometimes, but it was never long. One afternoon, loud noises came from outside. Strange men in black suits appeared. They were hunters people who captured aliens to sell or experiment on. James knew they had found Lyra. He quickly hid Lyra in his apartment and tried to think fast. The hunters knocked on his door, demanding to search inside. James stayed calm and said Lyra was not there. The hunters did not believe him. They tried to force the door open. Lyra's instincts flared up again. She felt scared and angry, her body glowing with strange energy. James held her hand to calm her down. Suddenly, the device James made began to hum loudly. It created a shield of light around the apartment. The hunters stopped, confused by the sudden power. James realized the device was stronger than he thought. It could protect them both, but it might only last a short time. He knew they needed a plan to escape safely. Lyra looked at James with trust and fear. She was losing control, but James promised he would not let her face this alone. Together, they prepared to fight for freedom and survival. The hunters outside the apartment grew frustrated. They could not break the light shield, and their radios were not working properly. James knew this was their chance to act fast. He whispered to Lyra that they needed to leave through the back window. Lyra nodded, still glowing softly but trying to stay calm. James helped her climb down the fire escape ladder carefully. As they reached the ground, the hunters broke the shield and rushed inside. James and Lyra ran into the dark streets, hiding behind buildings and parked vehicles. The city felt colder and more dangerous at night. Lyra's body trembled. Her instincts were growing stronger, pushing her to fight or run without thinking. James held her hand tightly and spoke softly, reminding her to breathe and focus. They found a small abandoned warehouse nearby. Inside, it was quiet and dark. James set up the calming device again and turned it on. The soft hum filled the air, and Lyra's glowing slowed. James searched the warehouse for supplies. He found old tools, wires, and some medicine bottles left by previous workers. He hoped some of it could help Lyra fight her instincts better. Suddenly, they heard footsteps outside. The hunters had followed them. James hid Lyra behind some crates and waited silently, heart pounding. The hunters entered carefully, looking for signs of life. James held his breath, hoping they would not find the alien girl. One hunter moved closer to the crates where Lyra hid. Lyra's instincts flared again. She stepped out, her eyes bright and voice low but powerful. She warned the hunters to leave or face the consequences. The hunters hesitated, surprised by her strength. James stepped forward and stood beside Lyra. He told the hunters they would never catch her. The hunters looked at each other and slowly backed away, deciding to retreat for now. After the hunters left, James and Lyra knew their fight was not over. They had escaped for a moment, but danger was everywhere. They needed a new plan to stay safe and help Lyra control her instincts. Lyra looked at James with hope and fear. She trusted him with her life, but her body was changing fast. Together, they would face whatever came next, in a world that did not understand them. James and Lyra spent the next day hiding in the warehouse. James worked on improving the calming device. He connected wires and tested different settings, hoping to find the right balance to control her instincts. Lyra watched him closely. She was scared of losing control but felt safer with James. She told him about her home planet and how her species used to live peacefully before war and hunting began. James listened carefully. He wanted to learn everything about her world. He realized the danger was not just on Earth, but in the universe. Lyra's mating instincts were a natural part of her life, but here, they made her a target. That night, James and Lyra planned to find a safe place far from the city. They knew they could not stay hidden forever. James remembered an old friend who lived in the mountains, a place where few humans went. They left before dawn. The city was quiet, but tense. James carried Lyra gently, careful not to trigger her instincts. They moved fast, avoiding roads and hunters who might be watching. As they climbed the mountain paths, Lyra's breathing became heavy. The device helped, but the urge was still strong. James held her close and whispered comforting words. She smiled weakly, trusting him completely. At the top, they found a small cabin. James's friend had left it empty for now, but it was strong and safe. They settled inside, surrounded by trees and silence. It was the first time Lyra felt calm in days. James promised her they would figure out a way to control the instincts. He studied her and the device, searching for clues. Lyra shared memories of rituals from her planet that helped calm her people. Together, they began practicing those rituals. Lyra closed her eyes and focused on her breath, while James played soft music on a small speaker. Slowly her glowing dimmed and her body relaxed, but the peace did not last long. One morning, James heard a noise outside. He looked out and saw a group of hunters moving through the trees. They had followed them again. James grabbed the device and prepared to defend Lyra. The fight for freedom was far from over, but James was ready to protect the alien girl he now cared for deeply. James saw the hunters moving closer through the trees. His heart beat fast, but he stayed calm. He switched on the calming device and hid Lyra behind the cabin walls. The hunters surrounded the cabin and shouted demands. They wanted Lyra for their experiments and money. James refused to give her up. He stood firm, ready to fight. Lyra's instincts flared again, stronger than before. Her eyes glowed bright blue, and her body pulsed with energy. James held her hand tightly, trying to keep her calm. Suddenly, the hunters tried to break in. James used the device to create a shield of light, pushing them back. The hunters were surprised but did not give up easily. James grabbed the metal rod and prepared to defend the cabin. The hunters attacked with weapons, but James moved fast, blocking their blows and protecting Lyra. Lyra's strength grew with her instincts. She joined James, using strange powers to push the hunters away. Together, they were stronger than anyone expected. The hunters, shocked by their power, retreated. They promised to come back with more force. James and Lyra knew they had won this fight but lost some peace. After the battle, Lyra's instincts calmed down slowly. She leaned on James, tired but grateful. James promised her he would never leave her side, no matter what came next. They knew the danger was still near, but their bond grew stronger. Together, they were ready to face the unknown, fighting for a future where they could live in peace. James and Lyra stayed in the cabin, trying to rest after the fight. But peace was hard to find. Every sound in the forest made them jump. James worked on improving the calming device again, hoping to make it stronger. Lyra shared more stories about her planet. She spoke of a rare flower that could calm her people's instincts naturally. It grew only in deep forests far from cities, and hunters. James decided they needed to find this flower. It was their best chance to help Lyra fully control her urges. He packed supplies, and they prepared for a journey into the wild forest. The path was difficult and full of dangers. Strange animals and rough terrain slowed them down. But James and Lyra moved together, helping each other stay strong. As they walked deeper into the forest, Lyra's instincts tried to take control again. James used the calming device and whispered words of comfort. Lyra closed her eyes and focused on staying calm. After days of searching, they found the flower glowing softly under the moonlight. Its petals shone with blue light, and a sweet scent filled the air. Lyra smiled, feeling hope for the first time in weeks. James carefully picked the flower and made a small medicine from it. Lyra drank it slowly. Almost immediately, her glowing dimmed and her body relaxed. The strong urge inside her began to fade. They rested in the forest, feeling safer than before. But James knew this was only the beginning. The hunters would not stop chasing them. Together, they had to prepare for what was coming. After the calming medicine, Lyra felt more like herself. Her glowing eyes returned to normal, and her body no longer pulsed with wild energy. James smiled, relieved to see her calm again. But the forest was not as safe as they hoped. One night, strange sounds echoed through the trees. James woke up and saw shadows moving near their campfire. Hunters had found them again. This time, they brought more weapons and looked more prepared. James quickly woke Lyra, and they hid in the bushes, heartbeats loud in the quiet night. The hunters searched the area but did not see them. James held Lyra's hand tightly and whispered that they needed to move before morning. They packed quickly and slipped away under the moonlight. As they ran, Lyra's instincts whispered to fight, to use her powers. But she held back, trusting James's plan to avoid conflict. It was hard, but she believed in their bond. They reached a high cliff overlooking a vast valley. James pointed to a hidden cave below. It was dark and small but safe. They climbed down carefully and settled inside. Inside the cave, Lyra felt calm again. The medicine worked, but she knew the hunters would keep coming. James promised her they would find a way to end the chase and live free. Together, they planned their next move. They needed allies, people who could protect them and understand their fight. James thought of old friends in the city who might help. Lyra looked at James with hope and trust. She knew their journey was not over, but with him, she could face anything. Their story was just beginning. James and Lyra left the cave before dawn. They traveled carefully, avoiding main roads and crowded places. James contacted his old friends, hoping they would help protect Lyra. His friends were surprised but agreed to help once they saw Lyra's condition. They had connections and resources that could hide her from the hunters. James felt a small hope growing inside him. At a safe house deep in the city, Lyra rested and healed. The calming medicine helped her body, but the instinct was still there. Quiet, but strong. James stayed close, watching over her every moment. One night, Lyra dreamed of her home planet. She saw green forests, clear rivers, and peaceful skies. The dream gave her strength and reminded her why she fought to survive. James knew they needed more than safety. They needed to fight back. He and his friends planned to expose the hunters and stop their cruel hunt once and for all. Lyra practiced controlling her powers with James's help. Slowly, she learned to use her glowing energy as a shield and a weapon. Her confidence grew, and so did their bond. The hunters had not given up. One day, they found a trace of Lyra's location and tried to break into the safe house. James and his friends fought bravely to protect her. The battle was fierce, but Lyra's powers and James's courage turned the tide. The hunters retreated, wounded and angry. James knew this fight was far from over. Together, James and Lyra prepared for the coming storm. They would face danger and darkness, but their hope and strength would light the way. James and Lyra knew the hunters would return with more power. They needed a plan to end the chase and protect other aliens like her. James reached out to a secret group that fought for alien rights. The group was small but strong. They helped aliens hide and fight against hunters. James and Lyra met their leader, a wise woman who believed in peace and strength. Together, they planned a way to expose the hunters' illegal actions to the world. They gathered evidence and prepared to show it to the public. It was risky, but they had no choice. Lyra trained harder every day. She learned to control her glowing powers and use them to defend herself and others. James stayed by her side, proud of her courage. The day came to reveal the hunters' crimes. James and Lyra stood before a crowd of reporters and officials. They showed videos and proof of the hunters' cruelty. The world was shocked. People began to question the hunters and demand justice. The secret group gained new members and support. It was a turning point for aliens and humans alike. But the hunters were not defeated. They planned to strike back in secret. James and Lyra knew the battle was far from over, but hope now burned brighter than fear. Together, they prepared for whatever came next. Their bond was stronger, their courage deeper. They were ready to face the future as allies and friends. Hunters struck back suddenly. They attacked the safe house with advanced weapons and fierce determination. James and Lyra fought bravely alongside their friends to protect their new home. Lyra's glowing powers shone brighter than ever. She used them to shield everyone and push back the hunters. James fought with skill and heart. never giving up, no matter the danger. The battle was long and hard. Many friends were hurt, but their spirits stayed strong. Slowly, the hunters began to fall back, their numbers shrinking under the united force. In the final moments, Lyra faced the hunters' leader. Her instincts wanted to fight without mercy, but James's voice reminded her of hope and peace. She chose control and kindness instead of anger. Lyra used her power to trap the leader in a glowing cage of light. The hunters surrendered, defeated by the courage and unity of those they tried to break. After the fight, the world changed. Laws were made to protect aliens and humans alike. The secret group became a strong force for justice and peace. James and Lyra stood together, looking at the stars. Their journey had been hard, but it brought them closer. They knew their future was bright, built on trust and love. Together, they faced a new beginning, a world where aliens and humans could live as friends, free and strong.